I was 63 years old when my son-in-law looked me in the eye and told me I had nothing to worry about. That was the moment I should have known. I'd been living in the same house in Sudbury for 31 years, a red brick semi-detached on a quiet crescent, 2 maples in the front yard that my late husband planted the spring we moved in. We raised our daughter there. We shoveled that driveway through 40 winters together, my husband and I, and when he passed from a heart attack 6 years ago, I kept on shoveling it alone, because it was mine, because it was ours. Because some things you hold on to not because they're valuable, but because they're the last proof that your life meant something. My daughter is 41. She married her husband 9 years ago in a small ceremony at the Algon Street Community Hall. Nothing fancy, because she said she didn't want anything fancy. I thought that was admirable at the time. Now I think it was just practical. He never did like spending money on things that didn't benefit him. His name doesn't matter. I'll just call him what he is, my son-in-law. For years, things were fine. Or they seemed fine. My daughter and I had lunch every other Sunday. She'd drive over from their place in Barrie. We'd have soup and biscuits. She'd ask about my knee. I'd ask about her job. Normal? Easy. The kind of relationship where you think everything is okay because nobody is crying. My son-in-law was always polite to my face. That should have been a clue too. Polite to your face usually means something else entirely behind your back. It started the winter before last, around February. My daughter called and said they'd been looking at property values in Sudbury, and my neighborhood had apparently gone up quite a bit. She wasn't wrong. A bungalow 2 streets over had sold for $420,000, and I remember thinking that was extraordinary for a neighborhood where we used to joke. The biggest attraction was the Tim Hortons on Regent. She said my son-in-law thought it would be a smart idea, financially, if I moved in with them in Barrie. Save on utilities, stop worrying about the furnace, have family around. She said it like she meant it, and maybe she did. Maybe she really did, at first. But the next question, asked so casually it barely registered, was whether I'd given any thought to what would happen with the house. I said I hadn't. Not really. She said that made sense, but that maybe I should, because property like mine was sitting there working against me in terms of government benefits down the road. She used a phrase I've heard too many times since: estate planning. When your children start using the phrase estate planning, pay attention. It almost never means they're worried about you. I told her I'd think about it. I didn't think about it. I went back to my shows and my crossword and my cup of red rose and didn't think about it at all, because the idea of leaving that house felt like being asked to stop breathing. It wasn't about stubbornness. It was about the only place left in the world where I still felt like myself. They came to visit in March, both of them. My son-in-law made a point of walking through the house, just casually, looking around like he was remembering the layout. He commented on the water heater, said it was old. He commented on the windows, said they were drafty. He said the neighborhood was transitioning, which I learned later is what people say when they mean they think something is worth money now. At dinner, he brought up a trip. He said they'd found a great deal on a package to Halifax, all-inclusive, flights and hotel, 4 days. He thought it would be wonderful for the 3 of us, a chance for me to get away, see the ocean. He said he'd handle all the bookings. He said not to worry about a thing. I want you to understand that I was not naive. I have been on this earth for 63 years. I grew up in a mining family in Timmins. I know what hard looks like, and I know what soft words hiding hurt intentions sound like. But this was my daughter. And there is something in you, something deep and old and maybe foolish, that refuses to fully believe your own child would do you harm. So I said yes to Halifax. My daughter seemed genuinely happy that week. We walked the waterfront, we ate chowder, we took a harbor boat tour, and she held my arm when the boat rocked, and we laughed about something stupid. I don't even remember what, but we were laughing. That part was real. I have to believe that part was real. The night before we were supposed to fly home, my son-in-law said there was a slight complication with the tickets. Something about a rebooking. He said my seat had been moved to a different flight, a later one, because of availability. He said not to worry. It was just a few hours later. He handed me a printed boarding pass and said the hotel had agreed to let me keep the room for the extra hours at no charge. Everything taken care of. My daughter hugged me at the door of the hotel. I didn't think anything of it. Families separate at airports all the time. I told her I'd text when I landed. I didn't land that day. The boarding pass was for the wrong date. Not a few hours later, the following morning. I discovered this at the Halifax Stanfield Departures Board, watching my original flight's gate close, and when I looked at the paper in my hand and then at the screen, something went cold in my chest that has never fully warmed back up. I called my daughter. It rang 4 times and went to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I called my son-in-law. He picked up on the 3rd ring, and I heard something in his voice. A stillness, a readiness, that told me he already knew what I was calling about. He said it must have been a printing error. He said he was so sorry. He said he'd look into rebooking something for tomorrow and call me right back. He didn't call back. I sat in the departures terminal with my carry-on and $40 in Canadian cash. I'd spent most of my travel money on souvenirs the day before, because that is what grandmothers do. We spend our money on other people. And I tried to figure out what to do. My phone battery was at 18%. The roaming charges from calling twice had already taken a chunk of my data. I found the passenger assistance desk and explained my situation to a young woman there named, I think her name was Petra, or something close. And she was very kind, very calm, and she helped me find a quiet corner and charge my phone at a service outlet while she made some calls on my behalf. She couldn't reach my family either. There was a couple traveling back from a conference. He was an engineer from Moncton. She worked in public health, and they noticed me sitting there for a long time looking at my phone. The woman came over and asked if I was all right. I told her the short version. She didn't hesitate. She said I should come have a coffee with them, that her husband would help me sort out accommodation for the night, and that I should not, under any circumstances, sit alone in an airport. I don't know if they realize what they did. It wasn't just the coffee. It was that someone looked at me, a woman alone, older, clearly frightened, and didn't walk past. That is a thing I will carry with me. They helped me find a room at a reasonable hotel near the airport, one that had a cancellation from that day, and they insisted on covering the cost because my card was close to the limit and I was still trying to reach my family. She gave me her number and said to call if anything else came up. I lay in that hotel room in Halifax, and I thought about my house. I thought about the conversation about estate planning. I thought about my son-in-law walking room to room, checking the water heater. I thought about how he had handled all the bookings. I thought about my daughter not answering the phone. I had a power of attorney document. I'd signed it 3 years ago, not long after my husband died, because my daughter sat with me very gently and said it made sense to have one, just in case, just for practical reasons. She was named. My son-in-law was named as an alternate. I had signed it without a lawyer because my daughter said the form was straightforward and she'd looked it up carefully. I had trusted her. I called my neighbor in Sudbury. She's lived next door for 22 years, widowed herself, and we have an understanding. We have keys to each other's places, and we don't ask permission to use them. I told her I was stuck in Halifax and asked her, please, as a favor, to drive past my house in the morning and tell me what she saw. She called me back at 9:15 the next morning. She said there was a truck in my driveway, a moving truck. I have heard people say their blood ran cold. I always thought that was just a figure of speech. It is not. There is an actual physical sensation, a drop, a draining, when you understand that what you feared is real. My neighbor asked if she should call the police. I told her yes. I said, please, yes, call them now. Tell them there's activity at my property without my knowledge or consent, and that I am the owner and I am not there, and I did not authorize anyone to remove anything from that home. Then I called the woman from the conference. I asked if she could take me to the airport. She came in 45 minutes. The flight back to Toronto was 2 hours and 20 minutes. I have never watched a clock so hard in my life. The man in the seat next to me asked if I was okay because I was gripping the armrest. I said I was fine. I was not fine. I was doing arithmetic in my head. How long does it take to load a moving truck? How far is Barrie from Sudbury? What time did they start? What could they have taken already? My neighbor met me at the Sudbury airport. She had stayed. She had not left. She stood in the arrivals area with her coat on and her hands in her pockets. And when she saw me, she just nodded, like we had a plan, because she is the kind of woman who makes plans. The police had attended. They had asked my son-in-law to pause the removal pending confirmation of authorization. He had produced a copy of the power of attorney, the one I had signed, and claimed they were moving my belongings to storage for safekeeping as part of a transition to assisted living. He said I had agreed. He said I was confused sometimes. That word. Confused. If you are a woman over 60, you will know what it feels like to have someone say that word about you to a person in authority. It is a specific kind of erasure. It is quiet. It works fast. But I was there. I was not confused. I was standing in my own driveway with a return boarding pass and a receipt from a Halifax hotel, and a full account of everything that had been done to me, and I was speaking clearly, and I was not raising my voice. The officer, a young man, thorough, not unkind, asked my son-in-law to step aside and asked me directly, had I consented to this move? Had I signed anything recently indicating I wished to transition to assisted living? Did I wish for these individuals to be removing property from my home? No, no, and no. My son-in-law said they were only trying to help me. My daughter stood at the foot of the truck and didn't say anything. She looked at the ground. I looked at her and I thought, I know you. I know your whole face. I watched you take your first steps in the kitchen of this house. And she still did not look up. The officer asked them to cease the removal. He documented the situation. He advised me to contact a lawyer regarding the power of attorney. I did that the next morning. I contacted the Elder Law Clinic at the Community Legal Center, a service I hadn't known existed until my neighbor looked it up. And I spoke to a lawyer who explained exactly what had and hadn't been authorized under the document I'd signed. Quite a lot, it turned out, had not been authorized. Moving my possessions without my knowledge, without my consent, and certainly while I was stranded in another province without arrangements made by me. None of that was within the scope of what I had signed. The power of attorney was revoked within the week. The process of going through what had been taken, what had been moved, what had been touched, that took longer. Not everything was recovered. A few things I'll never see again. Some jewelry, cash I kept in a tin in the linen closet, a signed print from a gallery my husband and I visited in Quebec City on our anniversary. Those things are gone. I have made my peace with it. As much as you can make peace with something like that. What I haven't made peace with is the planning of it. That they sat across from me at my own table and ate my soup and smiled at my jokes and then went home and worked out the details of stranding me in Halifax so they'd have a window, that they thought it would work. That maybe if my neighbor hadn't gone by when she did, if the officer hadn't taken me seriously, if that couple in the airport hadn't stopped, it might have. My daughter called me 2 months later. She said she was sorry. She said he had convinced her it was best for everyone, that I would be looked after, that the house would be sold and the money put somewhere I could access it. She said she didn't think it would go the way it went. She said she loved me. I believed the last part. I believed she loved me in whatever way she was capable of at that point in her life, and I told her so. But I also told her that love without accountability is just sentiment, and sentiment doesn't give you your mother's jewelry back. We are not estranged. We are careful. We speak on the phone about once a month. She does not bring him up, and neither do I. The house is still mine. The maples in the front yard put out new leaves this spring, same as they always do. My neighbor comes over on Fridays for tea. I change the locks, not just the front, all of them, the back door, the garage, the side gate. And I had a lawyer review every document that has my name on it. I have a new power of attorney now, held by a woman I'd known since nursing college, someone who has no stake in anything I own and no reason to want it. I still shovel the driveway myself. My knee complains about it, but I do it anyway. Because it's my driveway. Because it always was. I want to say something to anyone watching this who is in my position. Older, maybe alone, maybe starting to hear that phrase, estate planning, from people who love you. Please, not next week, not after the holiday. Go now and have your documents reviewed by someone independent. Not your child's choice of lawyer. Not someone your family recommended. Someone who works for you. Most communities in Canada have legal clinics, seniors legal services, elder law advocates. They exist because this is not rare. It is not rare at all. And if someone you trust offers to handle all the arrangements for something, the flights, the bookings, the paperwork, and then tells you not to worry about a thing, please, worry about the thing. The two people who helped me in that Halifax airport don't know the whole story. I never told them what I came home to find. But I think about them. I think about how they could have walked past me and they didn't. The world is full of people who will take what you have. It is also full of people who will stop and ask if you're all right. I have tried, in the months since, to be more of the second kind. The moving truck sat in my driveway for almost 5 hours. When it finally pulled away empty, I stood at the window and watched it go. And I felt something I don't entirely have a word for. Not triumph, not relief. Something quieter than that. Like the house exhaled, it's still standing. So am I.